Do we get to clap?
Yeah, yeah. All right. We'll say 3, 2, 1, and let's clap. Okay, ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Well, so Russell, you did this crazy thing. Can you tell us what this idea was from the beginning?
It started because I've kind of always loved online collaborative drawing tools and games. Recently, something like this, the Free Movie by Mischief was a really cool thing where they had users draw individual frames from the B movie to recreate it. Like maybe over a decade ago, Aaron Coblin was doing stuff like this. I don't know if y'all have seen the Johnny Cash project, but same concept, had individuals create individual frames from a Johnny Cash music video. He also did a cool project where he had crowdsourced drawings of a $100 bill to recreate the $100 bill. And one thing I think I hadn't seen was this idea of forcing people to go in order, because the web is a little chaotic. And I wanted to see if I could create a sequential, turn-based flipbook animation. Yeah, so the interface was pretty minimal. So we really just outlined how many frames have been drawn and the prompt, draw this next frame. So terrible.
See, even the creator isn't perfect here.
It's hard.
It's like missing. It is hard.
And they got so hard eventually when they got really amorphous. I had to do it multiple times.
All you had to do, trace it, submit. It would tell you if you didn't do a good job. We actually had some checks in place to prevent some inappropriate drawings as best we could.
So how did the results go?
Yeah, so at the time of the recording, we've had over 13,000 frames submitted. The current longest one it's about a 5.5-minute animation. We've also produced 24 different smaller animations, which are each 30 seconds in length. And so they run the gamut from 4 that started as a circle, 4 that started as a line, a triangle, a fish, a spiral, and Texas. This is what some of the results look like. So if we just kind of scrub through here, we can see as the frames progress with the circle, for example, we see that some hold their shape a little better than others. And then some of them just really turn into the spiral, and then they all become these just unrecognizable shapes compared to a circle and become increasingly chaotic and wild as we kind of progress through the 30 seconds. And they all kind of devolve into chaos at different rates.
I see they all trend towards the right side of the screen over time. Do you have theories on why that is?
I don't, but Alvin, do you?
I do. So I was noticing this too. Russell, is there even one that doesn't like immediately start to trend toward the right side of the screen?
No, they all end up on the right side, smushed on the right edge of the screen.
No one's like purposefully trying to push these drawings to the right side. I found this thing about like the thumb zone in phones where, you know, like if you're using your right thumb, then there's kind of a diagonal that your right thumb can touch, but it can't get to the bottom left corner or the top right corner. Last thing I found was this study from like 35 years ago. They were trying to figure out why people kept missing their targets on touchscreens.
I didn't know we had touchscreens in 1990.
But they found people tended to touch below their target, and people tended to touch closer to the edges of the screen. And so I figure if it's like right-handers who are missing, you're going to be missing to the right.
We probably had about half the users on mobile, and 90% of those half are probably going to be right-handed. So it would make sense that it would gradually go to the right. There's one very bad actor in the Texas drawing, and then there's one very prominent bad actor in the main long animation.
I did not.
241.
241.
See if you can
Oh, there it
240
is.
to 241. The transition
240.
between 240 and 241.
I mean, they were really teeing them up for just a brief moment, and then it kind of goes away. Wow. In this conversation, I'm just finding myself having a complete emotional turn that is surprising me, where I have a lot of like empathy for these people who are like drawing bad things, or I'm like, I understand you. You're just trying to be seen, but also you're messing it up.
I mean, it just reminds me, I think I also mentioned part of the inspiration was the game of telephone, which if you've ever played, it's usually a little bit more fun when you've got like one person in the group that's like, I'm going to sneak in this thing that makes no sense, or that's like makes this like adult humor or toilet humor. This is the current rendering of the longest one, which is still ongoing. It was taken over by my read
moment
was that a single person actually figured out, they were probably a developer, and they figured out how to circumvent the one drawing per person limit, which was imposed. And it kind of ticked all the boxes that you mentioned. They wanted to be seen, quite literally. There's a kind of a signature in there. They wanted to do something inappropriate to get a rise out of people.
I did notice in the
the secret experiments.
The secret experiment.
After we record their information, so let's say I put my name in, lovely. It just asked me to verify if I'm a human, which typically is in a CAPTCHA format, but we decided to keep it similar to the game interface and have them draw a circle. But the trick here was people don't actually have to draw a circle. They can draw a line or whatever they want. And no matter what was put in, that drawing would be submitted and recorded, which means we have recordings, and I think about 4,000 people, a little over, have submitted that so far. We have drawings of people's submissions that what would they produce when they were asked to draw a circle.
There were a couple of penises in here, but I also, some hearts. There was someone who just wrote no really big. I'm trying to find that one. Anyway, I feel like that there were a couple variations of defiance here beyond just the penis. Some people,
yes.
A lot of squares. I saw a lot of squares where it's like, I'm almost doing what you said. Okay, there's no. Clever.
So I actually did tally
triangle.
up all the results on this, and so again, the point of this was there's a formal name in maybe academia or research, which is the online disinhibition effect, which is people, if they're online, right, are going to act differently than they would act if they were in person. They lose their inhibitions a little bit. And early on, the theory was we were going to get a ton of these bad actors drawing inappropriate stuff, and turns out it didn't matter if we got their information, their name or their email, some personally identifiable stuff, before they did the drawing or after they did the drawing. There were 3 penises out of almost 2,000 for the people that didn't put their information in, and only 1 out of the people that did provide their information. And overall, there was, only 1.5% of all the circle attempts were something other than a circle, which is, again, way lower than I anticipated, which means there's either like hope for people on the internet, people will actually behave mostly good, or we are very lucky and the people that contributed to our project are just, great people.
Let's kind of wrap up. I guess, what did we learn about what?
I spent an inordinate, way too much time worrying about people making something bad or inappropriate, and I didn't give people enough credit that most people will do something when asked, if it's maybe a pretty benign request.
Getting to see all the frames, and after just experiencing my own experience of just drawing a couple frames, I feel weirdly moved by all the bad drawings or the bad actor, the people who didn't really follow the rules, which I think entering this call, I was sort of those are the enemies. And after seeing a lot of them and then the different variations they took, I'm sort of oh, those are the people who question the status quo and are like interesting and creative, and I kind of wish I was a little more like that sometimes.
I think the most delightful part of this was seeing when something was chaotic and then the collective group of subsequent people kind of turned it into something recognizable. So all of a sudden it's just squiggles, and then all of a sudden a heart appears for like a half a second and then goes away. I feel like that was very unexpected and was more interesting than seeing the good, quote unquote, good drawings.
The nature of just following the rules without really thinking about it led to a lot of chaos and led to things that weren't really pretty, and it actually relied on people who insisted on either pushing it in a direction or trying to be a bad actor to create some meaning. Maybe this is like teaches us something about how we work in groups. Like, you need somebody in the group to like come up with what we're doing. So Michelle, I think you've convinced me that they are the real heroes and not the villains.